Entrepreneurs. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to episode number 18 of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. On today's show, Karen Peterson joins us from Portland, Oregon. Karen, are you ready to inspire fellow out bosses?
Well, of course.
Awesome. So a little bit about Karen. Karen is a naturopathic physician and licensed acupuncturist providing primary adjunctive care at Green Thumb Natural Medicine. I had the pleasure of meeting Karen last year through Portland's LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and I know firsthand how passionate she is about helping promote the businesses of fellow out bosses. Well, today it's Karen's time to step into the spotlight to promote her own. So without further ado, Karen, let us know a little bit more about your business and what makes it unique.
Sure. Thanks, Rhodes, for having me here today. My business is a solopreneur practice. I started it 3 years ago, and the most unique part about it is that it's home-based, it's neighborhood-based. It's converted half of my house to treatment room, welcome area, and it's very quiet here. It's not your typical doctor's office where you go to, say, an office park or something like that. It's really a place where it's surrounded by gardens. You can hear kids playing outside. It's quiet. And that sort of healing environment was what I was looking for and how I wanted to practice. Yeah.
That's perfect. It sounds like the ideal health visit. That for many of us, we don't have that opportunity to be surrounded by gardens and quiet. And I'm thinking about before I moved to Portland, living in New York and being treated like I'm on a factory belt, like in and out as quick as possible. So definitely, healthcare is just, there's so many opportunities within that industry. And I'm curious, with all of the changes, what is the one thing right now with the way that you practice medicine that has you most inspired about your business today?
Definitely my patients. It always has been. Seeing how people, they just change for the better. And yeah, it always has been. Just when the medicine works and witnessing how it does change people's lives, that's ultimately the most inspiring. I would say from the business perspective, though, what keeps me inspired is just the creative aspect of being an entrepreneur. There's always another way to do something. And that's just, I can't imagine a better way to work.
Yeah, I like the phrase test and change. And I feel like as a business owner, that's, for myself at least, that is the mantra, right? Of, we're going to go down this path and see how it works out. And especially in the industry that you're in, really getting feedback real time from your patients. And it sounds like you have really great relationships with them, just to kind of modify to make sure that that experience is pleasurable and also treating the ailments of why they're showing up for you. So Karen, for a number of out entrepreneurs, actually for a lot of us, it seems like we arrive at starting our businesses for one of two reasons. The first is that we either feel a calling to pursue a purpose-driven idea or practice. And then the second is that sometimes we feel that we can no longer conform to a workplace culture that doesn't value who we are. And I'm curious, which one of these reasons resonates the most with you?
I guess for me, it was a little bit of both. Having this vision of having a medical office or a healing center where it was quiet. It was in a neighborhood. It was somewhere where people could actually rest while they're getting treatment. Imagine that. So having that vision and then realizing that in order for that to happen, I was going to have to create it on my own, which I don't think it necessarily that I just couldn't work for someone anymore. It just seemed like in order to make the vision happen, it would have to go this way. And my last career before I started medical school was in the nursery industry. And it was either making that decision of going into horticulture or something else entirely. And I thought, well, horticulture and growing things is just part of who I am. My clinic has a huge garden out in the front yard, and why not just combine the whole thing, everything that's about this vision, put it together as best as I can. So that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah, that's great. And I think for entrepreneurs, starting with that vision And sometimes the vision comes from recognizing the gaps, the things in our current workplace or practice that we recognize, this isn't working. And it sounds like for you, the experience of, the vision of creating this workplace environment that is quiet and peaceful for your patients that are going to seek, naturopathic remedies, acupuncture, without being disrupted by city sounds, and that you had experienced probably good care in the middle of a city that disrupted the care. And you had that vision. You saw that there was a gap for this. You filled it like a good entrepreneur. And like a starting out entrepreneur, you also have to do a lot of the work to carry out that vision. And I think that what you've shared is really helpful, and also recognizing that sometimes when you start out, it's not necessarily because you're in a culture that isn't welcoming of who you are. It's just that you've hit a ceiling, and the only way to carry out your vision is to do it yourself. And
exactly.
Yeah, I think that definitely resonates for a lot of people tuning into the show. And while the topic of culture didn't really influence you starting out on your own, specifically about just being LGBT, I am curious, as you're building your business, as you're thinking about, as you're doing the work, but thinking about expanding and potentially bringing on more people, what's one thing that you're doing right now in your business to make sure that you're creating an inclusive environment for those that you work with, and especially folks who often feel excluded by either traditional employers, for any staff that you may have, but especially for patients, really trying to remember just being LGBT and knowing what it feels like to be discriminated against. What are some practices that you do to really welcome your patients and let them know that you value who they are?
Sure. I did put a few things on my webpage, resources for patients that are LGBTQ aligned. And I definitely believe in what you put out there is what comes to you. And so it's always amazing to me how people find me and how they're drawn to my practice. And I would say that probably 75% of the patients I see now have openly said in the first visit that they were drawn to what I said on my website, like what my whole mission, the mission statement, and how I arrived at practicing today and having a safe, affirming space. And it's not only for LGBTQ people, but also for people of all other humanness, states of humanness. Mm. And I guess that's what I like to bring to the table when I'm meeting with people, is that, we're all humans first, and try to connect on that level, regardless of what we believe in, who we believe in, any of that.
Yeah, I really liked what you were saying about just creating those visual signals, something as simple as your website, and creating resources for underrepresented groups or folks who've traditionally had a hard time accessing healthcare. And, you gave a specific example of just general LGBTQ resources. And by doing that, you're putting out almost in a way that, you've got cultural competence in serving LGBTQ people. So it's that you're attracting new clients and new patients that are LGBT and other folks who've just traditionally had a really hard time getting quality healthcare. And that truly matters. And I've had a number of other guests on the show really talk about putting out a message for those kind of dream clients and seeing how by doing that, those dream clients arrive, being very intentional about that, without being afraid to say no to some of those clients that are, in your case, patients that might be nightmare patients, right? So it's interesting to see how people approach that. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk more about your LGBT identity, and specifically get a better sense of if being a part of the Rainbow family had any influence on your journey to starting your own business.
It did in some sense, but I would say the bigger influence to be an entrepreneur is just the availability of jobs to naturopathic physicians, just how our licensure is set up, how the deal with insurance and accepting of naturopathic physicians. I'm dually licensed, but that's a whole nother issue, and how fast it's changing now. I would say that ultimately that had a bigger influence, but of course, who I am goes into my vision, right? So what I'm envisioning as what needs to be in the world is, and that's being on the rainbow family spectrum, as you were saying, it's part of who I am. And so, of course, if I'm having a vision of something that needs to be out there and it's going to be a solopreneur setup, then of course, bring myself to the table, show up.
Yeah, it sounds like your journey was influenced by a lot of factors. And I want you to really think about being an out boss. And some of the times, and this is going to be helpful for our listeners who are thinking about getting started in their own business, if you could share one example of a time where it was difficult to be out as LGBT as a business owner. This example could be something where, you may have felt unsafe by disclosing the fact that you're under the rainbow umbrella, or you thought that by not disclosing you could get a client, and at that point in time you were in need of having some additional revenue. And so it could be a completely different example, but if you could really hone in and be specific and share a challenging time where being out was hard and potentially how you navigated around that. Because by sharing that will absolutely help listeners really map out how to get started and how to overcome some of the fear of bringing their authentic self to work.
Well, as someone who's not really a boss, who's a solopreneur, I guess the most difficult challenges with relating to patients, I wouldn't say I've had any trouble thus far with contractors or dealing with other people in the actual structure of the business. I haven't had any challenges there. Fortunately, I feel pretty privileged in that sense. But on the other hand, it seems that when it does get into a state where it's challenging to relate with someone in the sense that you feel, or I've felt, not aligned with how this person believes or how they treat people in the world. And in fact, there were a couple cases where we were at odds with this, but it was at least in a professional doctor-patient relationship setting, stick with your professional. You are a professional, and take the things how you don't agree out of the picture and relate how you can. I always fall back on that. I always fall back on this. There's another human who's sitting across the table from me, and we're having a conversation about stick to the things that are human. If it gets off topic, redirect, change the subject, really stick to the things that you can relate on. And I feel like that's the thing I keep coming back to the most.
Yeah, that's helpful to really try to draw common ground with folks that might have some resistance to you being LGBT, to you being out in the workspace, and to remind, in your case with your patients, just to remind them why they're there and how you can provide treatment. And I'm curious, on the flip side of that, the benefits of being out in the workplace. Can you share one way that you've successfully leveraged being out to either generate business or just to have a better sense of well-being, that you're doing purpose-driven work and you can be your whole self? What would be an example there?
I would definitely say those moments when someone comes in on the first visit and they say, I found you and I saw your website and you were affirming, not only because I'm on the LGBTQ spectrum, but it's also you are body positive, affirming to everyone, regardless of size. And I mean, I've had more than one patient say on those two things that's what drew them to the office. So yeah, it's reaffirming when you again put it out there that this is who I am, and you have a safe space here, and I'll show up, you show up.
Yeah, your strategy of having really positive visuals on your website and being engaged too, for me, knowing you in the Portland community, really being engaged with other LGBTQ businesses definitely helps generate a positive track record of, not only being 100% authentic in who you are, but being a positive role model for other people who are LGBT or allies that really value, that quality of who you are and how that shows up in your practice. So with that, I want to let our listeners know that we are going to take a very, very short sponsorship break. But please don't go anywhere, because when we return, we're going to get the opportunity to get to know Karen just a little bit better.
HR and diversity professionals. Are you struggling with engaging LGBTQ talent? Do you stay awake at night worrying about limiting litigation risks? Have you considered seeking support around these concerns, but just aren't sure where to turn? Look no further. Rhodes Perry Consulting offers you solutions with the Engaging LGBTQ Talent A to Z certification. This proven 4-week mentorship program delivers skills, offers support, and connects you with other professionals committed to transforming themselves and their workplaces. Learn more about this cutting-edge program by visiting rhodesperry.com and use the promo code RPC for a 10% discount. Take action and visit rhodesperry.com.
So welcome back, Outbosses. We are now going into our bonus round, where we'll have the opportunity to get to know Karen a little bit better, gain some insights on how we can bring our authentic selves to work, and then we'll learn one way that we can stay in touch with Karen after today's interview. So Karen, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Sure.
Great. Okay. So did your LGBTQ identity hold you back from taking the entrepreneurial leap, or did it speed up the process?
I would think it accelerated it.
Nice.
That vision to just go into it and put your authentic self into creating your vision.
Yeah, being authentic, being yourself definitely just adds fuel to that fire of seeing that vision and wanting to get your business up and running. So helps with taking action, right?
Definitely.
Nice. And in one sentence, what does it mean to bring your whole self to work?
Show up. Get up, show up. That's my mantra for this year. One of them.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine right now is I love you, keep going, which I got from just doing general meditation, but I love that. Yeah. Show up, get up, do the work. And what's one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
That's a lifetime process, I would imagine. One thing that keeps me inspired and motivated is keep moving, movement, exercise, and I do a lot of creative things. That's just for self-care, and I try to take my advice as much as possible. Motivated in my business is challenging, but I think the best advice somebody has given me is just stay with it.
Absolutely. Stay focused, stay with it. Don't obsess over it 24/7, right? Give it your energy, and then also be sure to give yourself energy and take care of yourself in other ways. Yeah. So name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
Insurance billing.
Nice.
Yeah, without a doubt. I knew from the beginning I did not want to touch that.
Yeah. Usually people are like,
maddening.
sharing things about auditing and taxes and insurance billing too. I would definitely delegate that.
Keep track of your numbers, know your books, but delegate for me, it's the tedium. It's the things that don't inspire me, and accounting and being the bulldog with the insurance company is not my favorite. So yeah.
Yep. And can you share a book or a podcast that's contributed to your success as a boss?
I would say that I love memoirs. I love people's stories. I think I'm in the right business for that. But I think the most recent memoir that was the most inspiring about just really showing up with authenticity is I read Gloria Steinem. I just read her book, and it's amazing. Her story is amazing and very inspiring. So I think just in general about showing up for people and showing up in work where you really just constantly see injustices. She's just such an inspiring woman.
Yeah, I think it's really important to surround yourself either by people real time or secondarily, through books and stories, autobiographies, biographies of those folks that really, really speak to you and motivate you to create the change that you want to see in the world, and
Definitely.
I think the power of many of us who listen to the show is that we're running businesses and we have this incredible amount of leverage to really impact the world in positive ways. And I think kind of looking to the past around how other people have done this is hugely inspirational. And so thank you for sharing that. So, a few more questions, Karen. What's one piece of advice that you would offer to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
If you see something that is missing, really take the step to create it. The world needs it, and stay with it.
I love it.
That's it.
Find your niche and stay committed. Don't give up when it gets hard.
Because it's going to get hard.
And it
is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will get hard, and test and change, course correct until you get that momentum, that sweet momentum that allows you to keep doing what you do.
Yeah.
So Karen, thank you so much for your time and for inspiring fellow outbosses. Before we go, can you share one way that we can stay in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Rhodes. This has been a great opportunity. You can find me on the World Wide Web, www.greenthumbnaturalmedicine.com, and also on Facebook, Green Thumb Natural Medicine. Stay in touch.
Excellent. Yeah. So we will definitely have that website on our show notes. So outbosses, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. It is always my pleasure to connect you with so many inspiring outbosses like Karen. As a next step, check out the show notes for highlights from today's conversation and consider leaving a rating and review in iTunes. And for now, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.